Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. President, I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation. We extend our sincere appreciation to you, Mr. President, for convening this important informal plenary meeting. 3 years ago, the General Assembly decided in Resolution 76-254 to observe 15 March as the International Day to Combat Islamophobia. Fortuitously, this day, this year, falls within the holy month of Ramadan. Pakistan is proud to have steered the adoption of this historic resolution together with the OIC member states. This resolution's unanimous adoption represented the first recognition by the international community of the phenomena of Islamophobia, a phenomena with its roots in history, a history of conquests and crusades, atavistic fear of Islam, and embedded prejudice and hostility towards Muslims in several parts of the world. Over the course of history, we have witnessed the consequences of religious intolerance, mass expulsions, inquisitions, pogroms, and genocide. Today, Islamophobic postures, policies, and actions follow the same dangerous path. Despite the norms of human rights and tolerance developed over the past 80 years, hate and intolerance have proliferated in recent times, especially against Muslims. We witness political narratives that seek to exclude, disenfranchise, and demonize Muslims. Even in societies that have acted as champions of tolerance, pluralism, democracy, and human rights. The manifestations of Islamophobia are multiple. Acts of desecration of Islam's sacred symbols and sites, defamation of its revered Prophet, peace be upon him, the suppression of Muslim identity, such as the hijab bans, the marginalization of and discrimination against entire Muslim communities. It's present in many places. Prejudice against Muslims is being stoked rather than suppressed. Resentments are being revived rather than reconciled. And discrimination is being legitimized by policies and pronouncements. The Christchurch massacre of 15 of March 2019 was the inevitable consequence of a political environment poisoned by anti-Muslim propaganda. The slaughter we have witnessed in Gaza is another vivid illustration of Islamophobic hatred and racism. Islamophobia is not restricted to one region. It is resurgent in the West and the East. Islamophobia is now being used as an avenue for political advancement and popularity, feeding the worst human instincts of fear, prejudice, and hate. In some countries, Muslims are being systematically marginalized and suppressed. Mr. President, the adoption of Resolution 76-254 was a defining moment. The world finally recognized the danger posed by Islamophobia. This acknowledgement must be accompanied by action. To this end, Pakistan and the OIC have initiated the adoption of General Assembly Resolution 78264 last year. This resolution requested the UN Secretary General to appoint a special envoy on Islamophobia. We are grateful that the Secretary General has indicated that he would appoint His Excellency Mr. Miguel Moritanos as his special envoy. Resolution 78264 has also requested the Secretary General, and I quote, to prepare and submit a report to the next Assembly session on the implementation of the resolution and on measures taken by Member States and the United Nations pursuant to the resolution to combat Islamophobia in all its forms and manifestations, unquote. We call for the early approval of the financial resources required to enable the Secretary General and his special envoy to implement the provisions of this General Assembly resolution on combating Islamophobia. The OIC looks forward to working with the Secretary General and his special envoy to develop a plan of action to combat Islamophobia. Such a plan of action could include a definition of Islamophobia and its manifestations, a mechanism to monitor and compile acts of Islamophobia, a template for national legislations criminalizing acts of Islamophobia, an accountability mechanism, as well as media and education programs to counter Islamophobia and propagate tolerance and harmony in societies. Mr. President, the international community must act decisively. Governments must ensure that their policies and laws reflect an unambiguous commitment to religious tolerance, that media and disinformation is not used to fuel hate, that no law is weaponized to curtail the identity of minorities, including Muslims, or discriminate against them, and that no citizen of any state is relegated to second-class status based on their faith. No nation can claim to be a true democracy while it systematically alienates and marginalizes its Muslim citizens. Mr. President, we appreciate the efforts of some Western countries, including Sweden and Denmark, which have enacted laws to address Islamophobia, including through criminalization of acts of desecration of the Holy Quran, and to ensure that freedom of expression is not misused to propagate hate and intolerance. Canada has appointed a special representative to combat Islamophobia, while the United States launched a national strategy against anti-Muslim hate. Australia also appointed a special envoy to promote interfaith dialogue. We urge all nations to follow suit. Our aim must be to promote a collective effort to combat Islamophobia with unity and empathy. We should commit to utilizing the positive messages of peace, justice, tolerance, and compassion that Islam, and indeed all religions, offer to combat Islamophobia and all other manifestations of hate, bigotry, and intolerance. I thank you, Mr. President.